Hi.
I'm Vanessa Stokes, certified lactation counselor.
And I'm Rebecca Jackson, certified lactation specialist.
And today we are going to talk about childbirth and pregnancy and childbirth, getting ready to breastfeed.
Yes.
Yes.
Here I'm milking it.
Yes. So first, we're going to talk about the preparations to breastfeeding. So first, before you really, there's really not much to prepare for other than being mentally prepared to, be pregnant and breastfeed and so forth and so on. So one of the things that we see a lot of the time is that mothers really stress out about stuff that is like months away, like especially going back to work.
Mm-hmm.
They're worried about going back to work months later. And Rebecca and I are always like, why are you even thinking about that right now? Like, you're pregnant and, how's your pregnancy? And then we ask them how their pregnancy is going, and they usually say it's fine. And I'm just like, so how's it going? Like, what do you like about it? Or, and I don't think a lot of women really think about that. They don't think about being present in the moment and really thinking about, being happy about being pregnant, So when it comes to breastfeeding, ladies, just take your time with it. Do some research. It's pretty simple. I hate to say that because people make this whole big thing about breastfeeding. It's not really that hard. Just put your baby to your breast every time your baby gives you signs your baby needs to feed.
Many times, you're your own worst enemy.
Yeah, you think too much about it. Stop thinking about it. Just put your baby up there.
Yeah, and you're putting too many issues before you and your child.
Yes. So, it's really about having mental clarity and not really thinking about things that aren't even anywhere near you at the time. So be in the moment, be happy, and have fun with being pregnant. People give you stuff. That's what I always love being pregnant, because people are always handing me food, and you can eat whatever you wanted, and
guys treat you like a queen.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Guys, that if you weren't pregnant, they'd slap your face, but then they're like bowing to you.
Right,
you're
exactly.
Like,
well, when it comes to eating, you don't overeat, of course.
No. Or we don't promote domestic violence and men beating women.
Yes,
please, no.
But at least for those women who do watch their weight, usually it's nice to indulge somewhat when you're pregnant. So, have fun with it. Enjoy the feelings, enjoy the changes in your body, have fun, just being, I guess, it's pretty much just being pregnant.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
And I think that will eliminate a lot of the stressors of other things. And then once you have your baby, then you could, think about other things like going back to work or things like that. Don't think about that. Don't think about getting a pump. I don't know how many times I've had moms ask me about pumps, and they're like 4 or 5 months pregnant. Like, why are you asking about a pump? Like,
So
don't think about a pump.
And we're gonna have another show all about pumping.
Yes, we're gonna.
And
what
pumping, like, because you have to understand the machine to understand what you're producing and how to produce and all that stuff. Right. And we're gonna also have a show about what this thing of enough milk is.
Yes.
I just talked to a mom today. Here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I just talked to a mom today. And it's okay. And, she used the, do I have enough, or I don't have enough milk statement. And I just want to say that enough milk statement is very circumstantial.
Okay, and we're
going to talk all about it.
We'll talk about that later.
But that's another show.
There's a lot that goes along with that. So, and let's just say that I'll put a little thing out there. it has nothing to do with your body.
It has nothing to do with your body.
Nothing to do with your body.
Okay, so we're gonna we're going to the pumping thing, and we're gonna go into the enough milk another show.
Yes.
Those will probably be 2 different shows because both of those topics are very much in demand.
Yes.
So I think the next thing we should talk about is affirmations.
Yes.
So I think affirmations are very important. Something that gets you through life each and every day. I don't think you should just limit affirmations to breastfeeding. You should have affirmations to every aspect of your life. Your mental health, your financial situation, your home, your career, and just your fears. You know, everybody in this world, for the most part, with the exception of probably the Dalai Lama and maybe Eckhart Tolle, have fears, okay? And we're only talking about 2 dudes, okay? So most people have fears, and so I think you need to have affirmations. And a lot of us women, we bring our fears into this world of breastfeeding.
And why do you think we do that, Mama Rebecca?
I think we do that because
called you Mama Rebecca.
That's okay. Because by the way, we're at the school. We're at our school that we co-founded. By the way, we'll talk. That'll be another show.
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about starting your own community school. But anyway, that's another thing. But so we call each other Mama Rebecca, Mama Vanessa. But anyway, I think a lot of reason why women bring their fears and their negativity into their pregnancy and their breastfeeding experience is this goes back to when we birth our girls. Like, we start our girls off completely different than we start our boys.
And we also don't have support. And there's no one telling us what to do.
But I think the support even starts off as little girls. Nobody teaches us what we're going to experience during pregnancy.
Exactly.
Nobody teaches us what we're going to experience during motherhood. Nobody teaches us what we're going to experience during menopause. I told you my story about menopause, and, my grandmother all of a sudden telling me one day, it was my mom and my grandmother there, we're at my grandmother's house, and my grandmother talks about this woman whose vagina fell out. And my grandmother was a dry jokester, she had this dry, and I was like, this woman, she's making stuff up. She exaggerated a lot. And my mom and my grandmother was looking at me dead serious. I said, wait, somebody's vagina fell out? And my grandma was like, Becky, it happens. Your muscles down there they already as tight as they were. Just like this. This can be flimsy, so can your vagina. And and my mom was like, oh yeah, Rebecca, all you have to do is just pop it back up. And she made this movement. Ooh. And I was like, what? What you so that and they were like, well, that happens sometimes after menopause. But luckily that was an accidental education.
Right.
They weren't intending to sit me down and say, Rebecca, this is what's gonna happen to you now that you're a woman, you're gonna go through pregnancy. Then when I was going through pregnancy, I would complain about, this was the other, and my mom was like, oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I forgot that happened. Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's what I got. I
don't remember anything.
Right. That's she said, and I asked her. I said, "Well, how was your experience giving birth?" And she said, "I don't remember."
Yeah.
And I said, well, what about breastfeed? She said, "I breastfed you and your sister until you guys were 6 months old." And I was like, "Well, how was the experience?" And she said, "I don't remember." Everything was I don't remember.
So that's the problem. I think that's why we go into a lot of things with fear, because we're uneducated, because nobody's prepped us.
Right.
When we, are you fearful of, driving? Were you fearful? No, because you were in the car every day. You knew what your parents did. Your mom and dad probably gave you, oh yeah, see the stop sign means stop. So you understood.
Exactly.
But with pregnancy and breastfeeding, many of us women, I've never even seen a woman breastfeed by the time we're pregnant. So we bring a lot of that, like, girl, I don't want that hurt.
And then the medical community doesn't support you in any way.
Because the medical community is not about educating.
And
the medical community is about billing
and treating
and suppressing symptoms.
And treating disease.
And going like this. Ooh, I hope it cures. Okay, that's what medicine is today. It's not about actually educating you on your body
or preventative health
and for real, true that you heal yourself type of energy.
Right.
A lot of you medical people are gonna look at this video and roll your eyes, and that's fine, because you don't even understand, because you're not properly educated on real health. Anyway, so what we need to start doing is we need to start saying affirmations as women.
Yes.
I am enough.
I am enough.
I am an endless stream.
I am an endless stream.
My body takes care of me and my child.
My body takes care of me and my child.
With ease and joy.
With ease and joy.
And you say those things. You say them all. And
just basic ones like, I love myself.
I love myself just the way that I am.
You know, I allow myself to be fulfilled.
I allow myself to be fulfilled.
That's it.
Oh, I live a life of abundance.
I live a life of abundance.
And so those are the things, and you tell yourself these things, and it just starts to be a part of your DNA. That's the same thing with getting ready for breastfeeding. Just say those affirmations. Really understand that you are an endless stream and that your body makes milk without you even thinking about it. And there's nothing dysfunctional about any part of your body. There's nothing dysfunctional about any part of your body.
And I do have to say this. Now, I know I hear this a lot, and I'm going to put it out there. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people say things like, well, there is a percentage of the population that have problems making milk. Okay. Now, that is true. It's a very small percentage, very itty bitty small percentage. And I do have to say this. If you have no complications, which is the majority of women that give birth, have no complications.
Like 99% of you guys.
Yes, no complications, no problems during your birth or during your pregnancy. 9 times out of 10, you will have enough milk to breastfeed your baby. It's that simple. If you birth your baby out of your birth canal, the way you're supposed to birth your baby, you'll be able to breastfeed. The issues that most women have, or some women have with breastfeeding, has to do with them. Doesn't have to do with their body. There's not enough fenugreek on this planet.
Fenugreek. I'm so tired of hearing that doggone word, fenugreek. Fenugreek is not a magic pill.
Okay, but we're not gonna talk.
We're not gonna talk about that. That's gonna be our. That's gonna be on our enough milk show. Yes, please, let's stay on task.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So now, but we want to talk about this. So say your affirmations. Work on yourself, women.
Yes.
Work on yourself.
And this is a perfect time because you are by yourself. It's just you and your baby.
Yes.
You're by yourself.
Yes.
You have time to think.
Or even when you're pregnant.
Yes.
A lot of times you are by yourself.
And then you have time to think. Mm-hmm. You have time to meditate. Mm-hmm. Not think so much though. I don't want women to think too much.
Just be now. Just breathe.
Just see yourself and be and just enjoy the process of pregnancy, breastfeeding, and birth.
Right.
And that's what we're supposed to be doing, ladies. We're not supposed to be making this a big deal. And that's another issue. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, pregnancy is not a health condition. Pregnancy is not a health condition. No.
It's not a health condition.
No, it's not.
But you don't see other mammals on the planet freak out when they have babies. They go about their day just like they just birth their babies. They lay down. Babies, the pups or cubs or whatever, they breastfeed and then they sit there. Yes, you have to sit.
So that's what we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that later on in the show.
So
the next point is you talk about that.
Being present. You know, just being where you are at that moment and enjoying the time that you're spending by yourself or with yourself, I should say. Not by yourself, but with yourself. And just being present in that time. And not thinking about the past or looking forward to the future, but just be present. And that helps so much. It helps. Enjoy where you're at. And also, don't plan anything. Stop planning, ladies. Don't plan everything. Plan. Stop planning. Just sit back and relax and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and just know that we've been doing this for millions of years. Yes, I'm one of those people that believe man has been around for a very long time. And you came from a woman, and your mothers, they all came from women. So we have to understand that we didn't need all this stuff, and there was no spike in maternal child mortality. So we have to really understand the truth about what's going on with our bodies, women, and then you'll be empowered enough to understand that you don't need all those plans.
No, you don't.
You don't, and you could just go. Let's go into the last thing, because we're kind of pressed for time.
Yes.
But prepping myths. Now, I have this question. I'm sure you've heard this question many times, Vanessa. I'm going into my sister voice because, Lord, we talk about that enough, milk thing. Anyway, but we hear a lot of times mothers saying, how do I prepare for breastfeeding? And when I was pregnant with my first son, I had an aunt who breastfed successfully all 3 of her children. And she suggested that I wear a wool sweater without a bra.
Sorry.
And because I was so, my mother didn't breastfeed me, I actually did it. I thought that was sound advice. And I went around the house for about 10-15 minutes with no bra and a wool sweater. Okay? And then I thought, I was like, this is just not working. Because it was supposed to toughen up my nipples. Yeah. Okay? So I put a bra on, and needless to say, I was okay after that. But like I asked Vanessa, I said, what if that had been the summer? What do you do in the summertime?
Right.
If you are pregnant in the summer and you're preparing, do you wear a wool sweater in the summertime to prepare your nipples?
Yeah.
That is the most uneducated piece of advice I've ever heard in my life. Ladies, there is no preparation physically for breastfeeding. Your body does all that itself.
And if you do that, you can actually cause damage to your nipples if you rub them too hard. And you can also
start getting those contractions.
You can start your labor.
Your labor. So we have to understand, we have to really understand sound advice. When you want advice, go to somebody that's kind of trained, or somebody that really talked to somebody that was trained.
Yeah.
But so what I want to tell you, that the only physical preparation you need is to trust your body, because your body does all the physical preparation on its own. Right. You just need to, once that baby is born, put that baby on your breast. Right. And even then, you really don't have to do that. The baby does it on its own, and that's where we're going to lead to.
Okay, great. So the next part that we're going to talk about is the childbirth part. And the first segment we're going to talk about is birth plan.
Birth plan. So, that's right. That's you. So I just want to tell you, ladies, I've heard 50,000 things about birth plans. Okay, there are so many websites where they have sample birth plans. They have templates for it. I even had one for my first son. I had my birth plan and I labeled it all out. Mm-hmm. And I made copies. Made about 4 or 5, and I had it in my bag for to go to the hospital. And what is really interesting is that I did everything on my birth plan, but nobody saw the stupid stuff. So when I did all that, and I'm talking about, I spent a good 2 months working on my birth plan. Right. Don't play with this, sister. So, but I did, mind you, my birth went exactly as I stated, because not only did I write it down, I envisioned my birth multiple times. I did a lot of meditation at the time. I was doing prenatal yoga. So, I knew the type of birth I wanted to have. So that's why everything worked out on my birth plan. But nobody saw it. So I did all, and if you're going to have a birth plan, really do it for yourself and maybe your partner. Or let your doula know that I think it's highly needed when you give birth. You should have a doula with you, which is a childbirth assistant for those who don't know. But, I really think that it's important that if you have a birth plan, don't expect the hospital to go by. Because I'm going to tell you this. I've been in hospitals where they'll give the people a birth plan and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, we'll respect your birth plan. And they'll come behind to the nurse's station and they'll roll your eyes and laugh at you. Mm-hmm. They'll roll their eyes and laugh at you about your birth plan. Because they don't give a hoot and holler stanky wanky about your birth plan. So don't... That's my man. Anyway, so that's what I want to let you know, people, is that don't be so tied to your birth plan. Just know your birth plan is for you, your partner, and your doula.
Yes. So the next part I'm going to talk about is intervention. So there are a bunch of interventions all of the interventions that you have in the hospital can interfere with breastfeeding. So just be aware that when you go into a hospital, the simple step as to just having an IV, that can cause problems with breastfeeding. So everything that you get intervention in the hospital can cause a problem. So we just want to let women know that, hospitals aren't really where women are supposed to give birth. Okay, they're really not. I mean, let's be honest here.
Hospitals are to solve problems,
and they're for illness. Okay, There's nothing wrong with you that you have to go to a hospital to have a baby. Now, hospitals do have their place. If my leg is falling off, or I broke a bone or something, then that's hospital. If I need surgery for some reason, hospitals are good for that.
Right.
But when it's about health and preventative health and wellness, hospitals aren't really for that. I mean, the purpose of them really started they're called hospice. They're actually for people who are dying. That's the whole purpose of them when they started 150 years ago or so.
It's a place to go work for people to die.
Yeah, and then doctors who it's a male-driven, institution. They wanted, to capitalize on birth. I mean, let's be honest. They wanted to capitalize, and then they also want to experiment on people. I'm sorry, but I had to go there. I mean,
no, they did no.
But so. Think about that when you're going to the hospital. I'm not saying don't go to the hospital and have your baby. I have both of my children in the hospital, and they're fine. I had interventions and all of that. But just understand and just be knowledgeable about what it is that you're doing when you go in there, okay? If you're drinking plenty of water, and if you're hydrated, and you're eating well, and you have no issues,
and your stress level is down,
you're
constantly breathing and trusting, and
yes, you don't need an IV, okay? You don't need one. And what IVs can cause is they cause too much fluid in your tissue, and you retain the fluid. It's harder for the fluid to go through your body, because that's not the way we're supposed to have fluid in our body. How do we hydrate ourselves? By drinking. That's hydration. That's how you hydrate your body. You don't hydrate. If I get thirsty, I'm not going to say, ooh, girl, can you give me an IV, please?
Ooh.
I'm not going to poke myself in the arm just so I can get hydrated. Drink some water.
And then if you're in the hospital for like 24, 48 hours.
Just imagine.
And you're just like.
Imagine the amount of fluid that's in your body. So what happens is moms get flat nipples. It's hard.
And the baby is like this.
The baby can't latch on because the nipples, so you have to go through all of these things just to get the fluid off. It's just
and
insane.
Then you're saying that my baby doesn't want me, the baby doesn't want the milk,
and then
the baby's starving, right. So I gotta give the baby a bottle.
And then you think there's something wrong with you.
And there's a shame spiral.
And then you start thinking, well, why isn't this working? And my baby needs me. Yeah. And you start freaking out and stressing out from an IV. So if you're healthy, you have no issues, you're not, high risk or whatever, which is the majority of women that have babies, okay? Don't get an IV.
Yeah, I didn't, because I had my first in the hospital, and when that nurse came up to me and said, oh, okay, I can start you off with a stent. And I looked at her and I said, no, you're not going to put anything in me.
Right.
And she thought I was crazy.
Right.
And I just looked at her and I said, and I looked at her like she was crazy, and she knew to back the heck off.
Right.
And I didn't have. I had a wonderful labor.
And
amazing.
then I think that
he latched on.
But I think, Rebecca, the combating, it's combative at times. You have to be.
You do. You have to kind of have. You have to have a strong voice.
Yeah,
you know?
have to be kind of combative when you go into hospitals and you ask for things that you want or you think that you want and deserve. And it's not easy to walk into a hospital when you have nurses and doctors trying to tell you what to do. And I had an IV with both of my children. I actually had Pitocin with my second, and Pitocin is a synthetic form of oxytocin, which helps to bring about your contractions in a not natural way, and it's very painful. And I also had narcotics. Is that what it's called?
You mean like Demerol?
Yeah, I had Demerol with my first child because I was in labor for like 2 days and I was extremely tired, and I was like, okay, I need something to cool me out. But you do what you got to do in that. But there were other complications that came about, and I do believe in my heart of hearts that it was because I got that dang Demerol and I had that IV, and all of those things caused problems, and they were ready to give me a C-section, and I was like, you're not giving me a C-section. It's not happening with me. And which they could not believe. They were just like, well, what if we need to take your baby out? And I was like, you're not taking my baby out of me. I'm pushing my baby out. And I did. So you have to, like Rebecca said, you have to have a strong voice. And you have to say, this is what I want. I'm perfectly healthy. I'm fine. Let me do my thing. Let me birth my baby, because it's actually you. You moms are the ones that birth your baby.
Right.
The doctors, when the doctor walks in, after the nurses have been there, the doctors walk in and they say, you have a boy.
Right.
You have a girl. That's it. And they write down this piece of paper and they walk out the room.
Right. Right.
They might, if you tore a little bit, they might sew you up.
But usually, sometimes the nurse does that.
But sometimes the nurses do that. So like I said,
they touch that baby and they bill.
So just
obstetricians, we're not saying you don't have a place.
Yes,
we're just saying that you need to be educated as well,
right? And
you need to understand that you need to find why are you in the birthing business,
right?
And what is your intention? What is your goal? And really, do you operate out of fear?
Right.
And are you trying to solve problems that aren't problems at all?
Exactly.
And that's what we as women need to understand. What is a problem? And what is natural? And what is just a symbol of what we really think about ourselves? Now, I know that's deep nose.
But also too, to piggyback off of that, you have to know yourself.
You have to.
And this is the perfect time while you're pregnant to really get in touch with who you are and what you are and connect yourself to whatever higher power that is that you believe in, okay? You have to connect yourself to that because it's imperative that you know who you are. So when you go through those situations, when you go through labor and delivery and breastfeeding and whatever else in life, and you can say, you know what, this feels right. This feels like I'm doing this right, and I'm going to continue to do this right, and I'm not going to let somebody who has no idea who I am, never met me before in my life, walk into a room, put their hands in my vagina, and figure how many centimeters I am, tell me that there's no way that I can have my baby anytime soon.
Or look at a monitor and say your baby's heart rate is dropping, right, and that you need a C-section. And look what I'm saying. We'll talk about that. That'll be a whole other thing. Yes. But what I failed to mention in the birth plan part is that when you put breastfeeding in your birth plan, just know that they're not going to really look at your birth plan, and you have to say breastfeeding every time you can in between your energy surges. Some people call them contractions. I call them energy surges. Thanks, Isabel Badilli. But just know you say throughout your labor, breastfeeding. I'm exclusively breastfeeding. Right, you got to remind them. Breastfeeding. Have your significant other remind them. Oh, we're breastfeeding. Have your doula remind. So it needs to be said often when you're in the hospital. When you're having a home birth, that home birth midwife expects you to breastfeed.
Right.
She's actually going to throw that baby on your breast right after you, or I should say place that baby on your chest so that baby can do the breast crawl. But anyway, and then the birthing center is the same thing.
Right.
But you need to keep saying over and over again when you're in the hospital that you're breastfeeding, especially black women. Black women, your voice needs to be heard.
Yes, and you need to tell the medical community what it is that you want, because they're going to look at your brown skin and lump you in a category.
Make a lot of assumptions.
And
we see it. We hear it and see it all the time. I'm telling
you that just from how I gave birth and where I gave birth, I was lumped into that category. And they looked at me and they said, there she goes, another nigga. I'm going to say it.
Nigga.
Another nigga.
See, that's
in here,
and we don't advocate for that word, by the way. We
don't. But I'm using it in the context
of their perspective,
of the perspective of people who generalize and stereotype black people.
I have to tell you, the medical community is very, very, very racist. And for black people, we roll our eyes because we know that that's everything in life.
Right.
But what we assume that a lot of these doctors are very educated and they're just going to look at our body. They're going to know, yes, we're black, and they're going to make assumptions. But you don't realize how much those assumptions end up becoming reality because they make choices for your body.
And
they make choices for you.
And those assumptions affect how you're going to
be
treated,
and your outcome.
How you're going to be treated in that institution, in that hospital, and it's amazing what we've seen just working in the hospital. That could be a whole nother story.
Okay, but
a whole nother show.
Maybe that should be another show.
Yeah,
we gonna have a whole bunch of shows. Yeah, I see right now we need
to touch on how hospitals work and how they treat different people. And
not just black people. I'm talking about Asians, Hispanics,
white people, even Caucasian, white people. Yep. How
they assume white people know more,
and how just where their rooms are. I mean, we worked. I'm not gonna name the hospital, but where we were and how even the nurses would talk about certain people just by looking at their name. They didn't even look at them. They would say, oh, her name is such and so, and she's in this room, so what kind of person she is. And I was like, oh, are you serious? So you're just generalizing and stereotyping folks because of their name. So imagine if they see you.
And so and those are the things that we want you to understand when you walk into the hospital. That when you're ready to breastfeed, there might be some assumptions that, oh, she doesn't really want to breastfeed.
Right.
So we'll just advocate. We'll push more for formula. We'll push more to separate herself from her child.
Right.
And that goes into more of the interventions. Every time when you have Pitocin, when you have all this stuff, that affects the outcomes and the success of your breastfeeding.
Yeah, all of them do, and
all of them.
And we can talk. I'll just list them. So there's your
induction.
IV. That's the first thing. Your IVs first. Then induction, which is giving the mother Pitocin, which is a synthetic hormone made to simulate oxytocin, which is the natural hormone that is within the mother and the child, and that is released during the energy surges to contract the uterus. And actually the baby gives off oxytocin too to help in the process of birth.
So that wand
in the wand, they put the wand inside
to break that bag.
Break the bag. that's an intervention. What other interventions are there?
Well, you have like the saline solution, the potassium, all that stuff, the potassium, the Demerol, all the numbing stuff, the epidural,
and that just can completely stop labor.
And then
where mothers are actually in going through the process just fine without an epidural. And then when they get to that epidural, it stops everything. And then the baby sometimes gets stuck because the mother cannot feel pushing the baby out.
And she's not moving.
And she's not moving. Labor.
The whole point of labor is labor.
Labor is
You're supposed to move. It feels better when you move.
Right.
You progress faster when you move.
Right.
But if you're numb from the waist down, you can't move.
So those are the interventions that...
And then, of course, the ultimate.
C-section.
The creme de la creme.
C-section. And that might actually... because we're way over time. Way over time. So what we're going to do is, I think, we're going to have a separate show about interventions in birth. Because I think that interventions in birth in hospitals...
Well, that's where it is. That's what happens, and that's where we get our phone calls.
Yeah, I think
that's where we get
that
our
is the biggest issue, especially with mothers that have had C-sections. I don't know how many times we've talked to mothers that are full. I mean, those mothers, a good percentage of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but a good percentage of them are ones that have had C-sections. Are so full of fear. Everything is fearful. They're fearful of everything that comes at them. They're so scared of being pregnant. They're scared throughout their whole pregnancy. They probably had problems during their pregnancy. Some of them don't. And they get to that point where that doctor walks in the room for whatever reason and says you need a C-section, emergency C-section, and they go ahead and do it. And then from that point on, they're completely disconnected from their child. And they don't know how to reconnect. And it's harder to breastfeed. The baby screams the house.
And they're in pain. And they go to sleep because they want to be numb. And so they wake up in and out of the first 24 hours. And that baby doesn't get that skin to skin and do that initial latch. And then somebody gives them the pacifier and the bottle and the pounds of formula, and then on that third day, they're like, my baby won't latch, and I'm exhausted.
So that is the last bunch of intervention information. And then we're going to give right now.
We'll just probably have a whole show. Yeah, because I didn't realize
how much we would end up talking about.
But like you said, that is it. That's where you separate failure from success succeeding or succession. What was it? Success.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Okay. So yes, I guess we'll make that part 1.
Yes, we'll make that part 1, and then tomorrow or the next time we film the next segment of this show, we'll talk about baby's first latch, the breast crawl skin to skin, mommy and baby bonding only, and postpartum recovery.
Yes. So tune in for our next show. All
right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, and also don't forget to subscribe and link, connect with us on social media.
Okay. Thank you.